and welcome back to Not My Timeline. Today, I want to dive into, unfortunately, how I got here today. And what I mean by that is I was with somebody for nearly a decade, married for almost 8 years, and we met a couple days after turning 21 years old. I want to first start with kind of my upbringing, because I think it's a really important piece to understand why I stayed when I shouldn't have. I was raised in the church. My mom sang every Sunday. I was taught, unless your partner does one of these 10 unforgivable things, you stay with them. That's what marriage is. You choose your person every single day. I believe that to my core. I'll be honest with you. I was so desperate to be loved coming from such a broken family. When I had met my husband, I thought, wow, finally someone was choosing me. I wasn't always like the pretty girl in school, very tall, very awkward. But when I saw him, I immediately was like, he's beautiful. So how we met, I was my senior year of college. I had already gotten offered to go full-time in my career and to finish up my degree at night. First Thursday of the school year, everybody goes to the Katati crawl. And at that time, my friends already had to convince me to act my age for once and be willing to go out. So I promised them, first day of the year, that's the only day. I've got to work tomorrow. I'll go. So Thursday night, I went to my criminal justice class and I saw him. And I immediately knew he was new to the school because, to be honest with you, there's a population of 5 mixed people in Northern California. So I just knew he had not gone there before. So saw him, clocked him, called my best friend up after and had said, oh my God, I just saw the most beautiful man. She goes, what's his name? I said, I have no idea. I wasn't listening when the teacher was asking who's there, but I already knew he was somebody I was going to remember. That night at the bars, her and I were out, and I said, okay, 12 o'clock, I'm leaving. Well, at 11:55, this man walks up to me, taps me on the shoulder, and says, can I buy you a drink? From that moment forward, we were together. I called my mom up the next day, and I said, I met my future baby daddy. She thought I was psychotic and said I probably shouldn't tell him that. But it's true. There was so much I could already predict and hope for, but I didn't know what our ending was going to be. I wish I could tell you he changed after we got married. He was rainbows and butterflies before. I don't know who I married after. It wasn't the case. I was too naive and too desperate to be loved to even take the first red flag as this is who this man is. The first night, because I wouldn't sleep with him, he kicked me out and told me to walk home. What he didn't know is I had a best friend who was actually in the same apartment complex, so I walked to her house and knocked on her door in the middle of the night. But I made this man believe I actually walked all the way to my house. And back then, the Ubers and Lyfts and things weren't heavily accessible then, especially living north of San Francisco. It just wasn't a thing. But I made him believe it was. We moved in together at about a year and a half, if I can remember. I remember even from the start, initially, he was the one making more money than me. But it was still expected to me to split things 50-50, whatever it may be, and to still show up after working my 8 to 10 hour day to cook, to clean, to do all the wife-like things, even as we were dating. His drinking was obviously already at a high, but I just didn't realize to the depths of what I had no idea what a functioning alcoholic was like. At that point, my friends had graduated. We were already living together. We were both working. I was so attracted to him because he also was somebody who was paying for his own life. His parents weren't funding it for him. He was working full time. And at 20, 21 years old, that just felt like an anomaly. And to actually have somebody who's also doing the same attracted me to him. I remember the first time he called me a bitch. And I laugh because I remember telling him that's not okay. That's not my name. It's not a term of endearment. And I wish I would have held true to that. There's small red flags then, but if they're willing to cross your boundaries over the small things, they're willing to cross your boundaries over the big things too. I just didn't understand what I was in until I was so far in it and I was too ashamed to actually share it. Why I stayed? I wanted to be married. If you would have asked little Michaela growing up, I'm sure some school yearbook says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And it would have said, "A mother and a wife." It was important to me. I wanted nothing more. The physical abuse didn't start with me. It started with the things around me. He would throw stuff. He would punch walls next to me. Unfortunately, he was shown from a line of people in his family, it's okay to lash out. We'll call it in that way. Better the walls than my face, I was told. He destroyed our first apartment and we moved into our second one. I thought we were there. We're getting better. We just got married. A month after our wedding was the first time I had to bail him out of jail for domestic violence against me. I remember he punched the mirror, glass went shattering, sliced open my foot. I'm calling my best friend up at the time. I need your help. The cops came. In fact, he called them on me because he said I pushed him. To put in perspective, I'm 5'11". This man's 6'3", much broader, bigger than I am. I pushed him after he was screaming, yelling in my face, and I'm backed up in a corner and I had pushed him off of me. So he wasn't wrong, but he called the cops. They said because of his stature versus mine, he was in the wrong. They arrested him. Here I am. I remember thinking back at the time, like, this is my fault. I shouldn't have. And so I did. My friend came over, sees my broken, cut foot. I thought he hid cash in this like box in our apartment and we're trying to break it open. There's no cash in there. This is the first time I ever knew what like a bail bondsman place was. And I'm showing up at like 3 a.m. to try and bail out this man who literally was just screaming, yelling in my face, telling me I'm a worthless piece of shit. And he wants nothing to do with me. I remember getting my first phone call from him in jail. And the first words were out of his mouth, "I'm sorry. It's, are you getting me out of here or what?" I did. And it was probably 3 days before he was done being drunk and decided he wanted to be hungover. And it was probably about a week before we could have even a conversation about it. And it was never a conversation from my side of, I'm done. It was always just, what can we do to stay together and to communicate better? Or what can I do to better support you? About 2 months after that, we were at a football game with each of our best friends. I always thought maybe if somebody saw him scream and yell at me, that somebody would step in. We're outside of the Raiders stadium at the time. And because I told him to stop pounding beers, I think by that point he's already 10 beers in. He's telling me to shut the fuck up as he's screaming in my face. And his best friend said nothing. I wish more men held men accountable. People are okay acting certain ways behind closed doors. But if you don't hold them to accountable to being a certain standard, to treating not only women, but just people a certain way, it becomes okay. And for him, it became okay because no one told him it wasn't okay. I went to the game. I just remember being like so sad that now my best friend got to see it in public. But I'm still posting pictures on Instagram. We're in love. This is great. And it just wasn't. I watched my sister in my own life choose men. And ultimately, when she had her kids, it also meant she gave up her dreams. For me, it was so important in college not to date. I think it's an important thing to note. My husband was my only boyfriend. I wanted to keep my head down. My way out of my family life was for me to go to school and work and have a career. So as things in our marriage started to evolve and I could recognize it was toxic, but was still in it, I knew kids weren't the answer to fix us. So we actually didn't have our son until about 2.5 years into our marriage. When we were in our second apartment was probably when he got the most volatile around me. He destroyed it. Ripping things off of the wall, he like broke part of the bed frame, threw it at my face. To this day, I still have a scar on my head. And I've been using scar cream now for like a solid year because it became like so important to me of like not seeing that anymore. I called my mom. My mom lived in Arizona. So where we were out in Sonoma, Again, everyone graduated by this point, moved away. We were alone. His family lived about 2 hours north of us, but it was just us. So I called my mom up and I said, I think I need to move out. She was so confused because she was just out 2 weeks before in our new beautiful place. We went wine tasting for her 50th birthday. She thought we were so happy. She wasn't wrong, but she also didn't know the full story. My mom got out on the next flight, and I remember sitting her in her car with her. And she just said, you're going to get through this. And she helped me move into my own 1-bedroom apartment that I never thought I was going to live in. And at that point, it's sad to say, like, I look back and in my head, we weren't over. It was just, we need to cool off. Like, we need to figure this out. We need to go to marriage counsel. Like, we need to do the things that you're supposed to do. But he was unwilling to do. And while drinking definitely like escalated things for him, it wasn't necessarily like the reason. He was still capable and able of saying and doing all of the same things. Alcohol just like shortened the fuse for him. After about 3 months living apart, we decided to go up to Reno for a weekend. Trying to have like a reconnection. Let's try and see. So we went. We started drinking. Things escalated. I'll be honest with you, I'm lucky to be alive. I woke up in a stairwell that night to a security guard waking me up. And all I had was like flashbacks of this man throwing me around this room like I was a fucking rag doll. Security guard, when he woke me up, said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I don't know." I like will never forget the way my body felt. It wasn't just like heavy. It was just so broken. We came into the room. They like let me in. I said, "I don't have anything. I don't have my phone. I don't have anything." And I wasn't wearing shoes. And this man is like, everything's packed up. And I just remember him like laying on the bed with his like hands across his chest and he's asleep. I didn't say anything. I just literally like grabbed my phone, grabbed a bag and like left. Later on, he had told me he thought for sure I was going to call the cops and he was going to get arrested for what he did. And I didn't. Why? I was so trauma bonded and loved this man that I just thought if you love the ugliest parts of someone, eventually they'll love you too. So it's probably now like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm in Reno in a random fucking hotel. And I called my mom once again. And I called his mom. Told them what happened. But unfortunately, at that time, I was not making enough money in this world that I needed to rely on this man to drive me back to California because Reno is in Nevada and renting a car costs a lot more money and all the things. That was a moment where I decided this man will no longer like financially control me. I will make sure that I have a way to leave if I ever needed to, even though I needed to and never did. So we did. This man, eventually he woke up and he drove me home to my apartment. I told him, "Don't touch me." I mean, I physically could not be, I was shaking. And he left. He dropped me off. And I remember like that night him showing up at the apartment and he's like, "I'm just sorry. I just wanted to have eyes on you." And for me, it was like, wow, he's so sorry, actually. No, it doesn't mean it was going to end. What I wish I could tell myself, the one who was sitting in that stairwell, it's so hard because if I would have left then, I wouldn't have had my kids. But I wish I would have loved myself so much differently then, where I could have chosen myself then and actually believed I deserved more. Unfortunately, things got worse. We decided to hold an intervention for him. My mom flew back out. His mom was there, our two best friends, and also his grandfather. I mention his grandfather because it's an important piece. My husband never knew his dad, never met him. His grandfather for him was the most father-like figure he had. His grandfather, unfortunately, also chose to not treat women the greatest. And once he did become sober himself, that was no longer how he chose to treat his partners. But unfortunately, it's something my husband did see and was aware of. Having his grandfather at that intervention also showed him the monster in him was being shown or being brought to light. And his grandfather said, "You need to cut this shit out, Mikey." My mom at the time had told him, "My daughter's never going to leave you. If you can't be the man for her, it's going to have to be you." My mom saying that has probably stuck with me ever since I lost my husband to suicide, because he knew I was never going to leave him. It's not that for him the apologies were flowers or gifts, or really, to be honest, I didn't get much apologies. But he knew that, like, even if he did give an apology to me, like, I was so grateful to finally get one that I really didn't care about the in-between and how he made me feel in the week in between the actual fight and to when he was sober enough to realize all that could be erased with just an "I'm sorry." We decided to have our son, Andre. Funny enough, we named him Andre because we met at a bar named Dre's, and that became his name. When I was pregnant with our son, it was COVID. And what I mean by that is it became an all-day escapade for my husband to be drinking. He would be having beer, playing beer pong. I'd be having water at the table while we played. I remember talking with him about his drinking leading up to our son's birth. "When do you think you might cut it out? Because, like, technically I could go into labor anytime in, a month out, whatever." He's like, "Oh, by 6 months, like, I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to be pretty low on it, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, okay, that didn't happen. The week our son was born, I was having complications. And after one OB appointment, which also, mind you, during COVID, he wasn't allowed to go to appointments with me. So my biggest fear is I was going to head to an appointment, something's going to be wrong with my son, and I'm going to have to, like, call him and tell him something happened. I remember on that Tuesday, I went to my OB appointment. Something was wrong with my son's heart rate, so they sent me straight to the hospital. This is the week I was due. I get released, and I remember sitting him down that night saying, "I need you to please stay sober. They were going to induce me on Thursday. I'm too nervous. What's happening with our son? Like, what if I need to go in the middle of the night? I need to know you can drive me." "Yeah, of course." Well, the next night, Wednesday, he got so blacked out drunk. I remember just, like, sitting by my hospital bag, just, like, scared and so mad at him. We wake up in the morning. We're supposed to head to the hospital to go get induced. We weren't even speaking. When we were there, after I delivered my son, I was so hysterical that they had to bring in a psych eval team because they were worried if I was, like, mentally capable of mothering my child in that moment. No, I was just so terrified of going home with a newborn and a man who couldn't stay sober for me, even if I begged him to. Fast forward a couple months, our son's maybe 6 months old by the time I was allowed to go tour a venue for the first time. I was going to be gone for like 3 hours, right? Here's the bottle, here's this, here's the exact times you need to feed him, everything. Midday. By 12 o'clock, he was so wasted he forgot to feed our son when I came back. And remember the argument was, he's like, "How did you know I didn't feed him?" I said, "Because the morning bottle's exactly where I left it this morning, still filled with milk." At that point, I just felt like I was a single parent to the grown child and my son. It's funny, now our like family mantra is this Bob Marley song, "Don't worry, because every little thing is going to be all right." We used to have this Bob Marley book, and I would read it in my son's like rocking chair, and I would sing the song to him. As little as he was. My husband was a big Bob Marley fan, so my son grew to love that song as he got older too, and it now is his daddy song. And anytime we hear it, we always think it's his dad trying to say hello. For me, it's like I feel like he's trying to say I'm sorry. When my son was about 8 months old, I was invited on my very first overnight trip. It was a Jordan Con showcase. I was like just had entered into like I call it the private planning world. You're not like dedicated to a venue. You're with the planning team. His drinking is a lot, and knowing he couldn't be trusted for a couple hours, I remember calling my mom up and asking her, "What am I supposed to do?" At this point, he was feeling like my career was starting to take a shift, and I was moving to this next step of like I'm progressing, and he didn't like that. And he was fully wanting me to cancel it's going to be one night in Dallas, wanting me to cancel to be home to take care of our son. And when I asked my mom, what should I do? She says, well, do you want your career? And I said, yeah. And then she said, then you're going to bring your son to me and I'll watch him and you go do what you need to for work. And then you go right back home. I said, okay. So I turned off my location. I told his mom and my mom exactly what I was doing. He left for work. I took my son. We got on the next flight. Once we landed, I told him. I felt like in that moment, I was ending our marriage. I knew if someone took my kid outside of state lines, I would have been pretty pissed. Rightfully so, he was. I left my son with my mom and I got on the next flight to Dallas. In a different episode, I walk you through how pivotal that night was for me in my career, meeting Cressida Matucci, David Beam, and the opportunities that came for that. But that also was the trip that genuinely changed my personal life. I, for the first time, felt like I could breathe in a way that I hadn't in many years. But I flew home on a high from what career opportunities I just found. Got to my mom's, and my mom's out here in Arizona. At the time, my family was like this big Italian family. You come into town, everybody's getting together. We're all at my grandfather's, the like pinnacle of our family's, hierarchy. We're all at the house. Everybody knew something wrong if I'm up and coming, so they all showed up. While I was there, I'm watching my aunt help parent the younger nieces and nephews, and just like the way my aunts and uncles and cousins like all interacted with each other. We don't have that. We're out in California. We're alone. So I truly walked inside my grandfather's house and I called him. And I said, your son and I are moving to Arizona. And he said, are you now? What about me? And I said, if you want this family, you are too. A month later, we are moving. We moved end of May of 2021. My son was just about to turn 1. It was 118 degrees the day we got here. It was really fucking hot. His drinking still at an all-time high. That 4th of July, we were at my grandfather's house. He got so blacked out drunk by, I think, 1 or 2 o'clock. He's punched a wall at my grandfather's. I remember my 2 uncles coming up to me. They're like, hey, is he good? And I'm like, nope. No, he's not. We're going to go put this grown-ass fucking man to bed, which we did. And he didn't even get to watch the fireworks for the first time with our son. Moving to Arizona was the worst thing we ever did. I think it showed him on his own relationship with his family, what that was. Also, moving here allowed him to genuinely be loved. He said multiple times my mom was one of the few to ever love him unconditionally in a shorter time than some of his own family did. She did. I don't know how my mom could see me, her daughter, go through so many awful things and still love him and still welcome him into her home and cook him dinner and laugh and play. But if I was in it, she was in it. Kind of the coming months became, I think you should cut out liquor. That did nothing. There was one night I thought he could have been capable of harming himself. It was the last night that he ever drank, February 6th. We got into a huge level 10 fight. He's screaming at me in front of my mom. I'm sure our son's in the living room. And I remember him walking out that door, and I turned to my mom and I said, he's not coming back. And sure enough, usually if things were super bad between us, I could say, hey, your son wants to say goodnight. We'd FaceTime for 2 minutes. We could keep it copacetic, and he could say goodnight. But he wasn't answering his phone. And so that's what I knew at this point. Like he's not wanting to be connected. He's not wanting to feel. It's probably like midnight, 1:00 in the morning, and he's not home. Haven't heard from him, but I see he's at some like pizza location. I checked the business because that's what any psycho wife does. You see with their business hours, and I did. And they were closed. So like, why is he still there? I ended up calling up my 2 best friends, who at this point are the only 2 people aside from my mom, his mom, and freaking Jesus that knows the truth of what's going on between us. Her husband showed up, went to the parking lot, and for the first time, Michael was being shown like to another man. Like, I see you, you're in this. Do you need a ride home? And what? Michael came home the next day. And it was truly the first time like I sat him down and I said, I need you to get sober, not for me, not for your son, because clearly that hasn't worked. You have to do it for yourself. And I need you. I'll never forget, like we're sitting across the dinner table together. And I said, it is your responsibility to go through your own boxes in your closet, not our kids one day to unpack for you. And I believed that then for him, and I believe that now for myself. The things I have gone through are horrible. But I am determined to continue working on myself and learning from what I went through for my kids. I don't want them to have to unpack my boxes. They don't deserve that. They're going to have their own trying to understand all of this one day too. But he did. He went out, got a tattoo with the number 27 and a circle on it, had it on his wrist, because February 7th was the day he got sober. And he truly did cold turkey. I didn't believe it. I thought, I mean, again, I had no idea what it was like to be in a marriage with an alcoholic. He didn't even like to use that word. He would just say, I struggle with drinking. He already was like immediately right after saying he's sober, I want to have another kid. And I'm like, well, I just want to like trust the process. Like, where are we at? Are you actually getting sober? We decided to have our daughter, and he remained sober. But regardless, like every year, it felt like every October, every like 6 months, he'd go through this like, not necessarily depression, but just like a spiral of like, we're bad, everything's bad, we need to get divorced, and I'm a shitty human. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We were just writing letters to each other 2 weeks ago on our anniversary of how much we love each other, and we're so proud of each other and the changes that we're making. So like, where is this coming from? And I'd always have to like, what do you mean? And like fight for him to want me. My mom, she passed away in November, and it hit both of us in ways we never were anticipating. Again, for him, that was a mom who's loved him so unconditionally. And for me, that was my only person who truly knew every depth of how bad things were between him and I. Fights between us were like hard. He didn't know how to show up for me. He didn't show up for me. I mean, it was probably one of our biggest things I could say I was most disappointed in him was how he did not show up for me when my mom passed away. He didn't offer to, I tell him tonight I need to go through photos for the celebration of life. And okay, not let me sit with you, let me hold you, while you're crying, looking at your mom's freaking photo. Like there was just no empathy, no support. But I still needed to cook dinner and clean and show up and work and have our 2 kids and be a mom and be a wife and, you know, do the things. The year he died, 2024, he called his mom up in January. At that point, she was already pretty removed from our life. She wasn't acknowledging that he was sober. And anytime we would talk to her, it was really just about herself. In January, he made a call to her saying he relinquishes her of any motherly duties, like she's no longer his mom, and that every fucked up thing inside of him is because of her. 5 months later, we went on a family trip with some of my mom's siblings to Mexico. the trip was happening over her birthday. For him and I, it was kind of like a way to honor her and kind of a good reset for him and I. And it's sad because I look back at that trip now and I remember we just had taken family photos the week before. And while we're on this trip, we got them back. And we're looking at these photos of me, the kids, him. And for the first time, I actually felt like, God, we're fucking doing it. Like, he's sober. We've made it. All the reasons why I've stayed was worth it. I didn't know those photos were going to be used at his own remembrance gathering. I didn't want to call it a celebration of life because I just felt like choosing to die by suicide wasn't a celebration, but I wanted to remember his life. So that's what I did. To walk you through the week and kind of that day, if you will, finding him, I could see him kind of like being disconnected, kind of, let's say, the 2 weeks before leading up, kind of in his head. We were about to move into this big, beautiful house. And I just thought, he doesn't like change. Men don't like change. Tuesday that week, we were in our office together. I think it's also important to note we didn't just have our 2 kids. We also had my 15-year-old niece. She at the time was living with my mom. And when my mom passed, we took her in. He kept telling me, she's not just your responsibility, she's our responsibility. I'm her uncle too. So here we are, 3 kids. Our daughter's 1, our son's 3, my niece 15. Again, we're back in our office. It's Tuesday. I remember just like saying, hey, I want to have a check-in with you because I see you really disconnected and in your head. And I'm not sure how to help you. And I'm getting a little worried right now that you might drink again. And when his grandfather passed, he didn't. I thought that would have been the moment that would have like broke him. But I'm just seeing him like not excited about some job opportunities that were coming down the pipeline and just like blowing off those meetings. And our kids, like he'd be playing with them, but like was not. And again, not excited about this big house. I'm like, this is all that we ever wanted. What do you mean? And I asked him, I said, do you want to go back to therapy? He said, no, it's not that. I said, okay, well, if it's not therapy right now, then I need you to reach out to the men in our lives. Talk to my uncles. He would like to go like do poker with them sometime. Or I said, reach out to our best friends, Kyrie. Maybe see if he wants to go to the gun range with you. No, that's a good idea. Maybe I will. And he went off that day and he went to the gun range. He assured me the anxiousness and like disconnectedness was truly just like stress at work, money, and just like the move. I believed him. At that time, I am producing events all around the world. I remember I'm taking late night Zooms, 6 a.m. Zooms because I have clients in different time zones. So Tuesday was my talk with him. Wednesday, I had a late Zoom. He was supposed to be like packing or he was supposed to be packing. I get off my Zoom and I remember I come into our room thinking like, let me see how much progress you made. No, this motherfucker was asleep in the bed. And I remember being like so angry. Like here I am busting my ass to try and provide for this fucking family. And you're over here napping. But I didn't yell. I didn't call him Nate. Like the way and who him and I were at that point was just different humans. We were a different relationship, how we would argue, how we would talk. Like I truly thought like we had grown to the point of like, we're going to be okay. Did I think he's always going to have these like dark tendencies? Yeah, I knew the like inner demons within him weren't going to stop with me. But I thought like the progress that we had made, I could believe who he says he was going to become. So I just remember he wakes up, he's so sorry. And I'm like, listen, if it wasn't packing, I wouldn't have been mad if I came out and you were like playing with our son instead. And so I told him, I'm going to go run errands. I will be back in 2 hours. Please play with our kids. He sends me a text. I'm sorry. I remember texting him, I love you. It's not worth it. To me, it's just like, you don't need to be angry. He is sorry. You get it. That was it. The next day. Thursday, June 13th, 2024 was the day he chose to take his life. I had a 7 a.m. Zoom with a client. So for this day, I asked him, can you please take the kids to school? He did. One of the things at the time I was asking him would mean so much to me is if our kids saw him make me a cup of coffee every day. Because there really wasn't something that, like, as a routine, he did for me. And that would mean something to have that for my kids. He wasn't doing it. But on that day, he did. He came up into the office with my cup of coffee. And I was like thrilled, like beyond appreciative. We went downstairs and we started packing a few boxes. That's what, like, literally on our calendar, I finished Zoom. We have 45 minutes to pack, go through our kids' clothes. And then I'm going to go to physical therapy. You have an hour meeting with your team, and then you could go to physical therapy. And then we're going to keep doing the things. And my aunts are going to come over tonight and we're going to pack. Like, we were in like go mode. While we're downstairs packing, I remember turning to him and saying, I wonder if we didn't have my niece, would we be talking about having a third kid right now? These are the conversations we were having minutes before he took his life. We finished up our boxes. We went upstairs. He started to get a call from his coworker, Dave. I hop into the shower. I give him a kiss. And as I'm about to leave, one of the biggest things I've always told him was important to me was, you always kiss me goodbye, because you never know what tomorrow could bring or what could happen the minute you walk out this door. But in my head, I had just kissed him maybe 10 minutes before. He's clearly on like a work call. So when I went into our office to say goodbye, I kissed him on his right shoulder. Till this day, I still regret only kissing him on his shoulder. That was it. I left to physical therapy. Mine's at 10:30. His was supposed to be 11:30. We lived like maybe 5 minutes away. The odd thing is while I'm at physical therapy, my therapist was going to be proposing to his girlfriend that weekend. So he's asking me, how did Michael propose? So the entire time while I'm laying on this table, I'm confessing how much I love this man and how did he propose to me? And I get this text message, I love you. Not even a minute more. I respond back, I love you more. I didn't know that was his last thing he was going to say to me. I finished my session. It's odd. He's not here. He's supposed to be. So what does any normal wife do? You look at your partner's location, as I did. It showed him at like the Target parking lot, like around the corner from our house. I thought, okay, maybe he's throwing away some big boxes that wouldn't fit in our shit, cool. But it's odd because any other suicide widow that I've talked to, they all have shared the same thing. Like all of a sudden you just get this like sick gut feeling like something's wrong. And when he wasn't at physical therapy where he was supposed to be, I didn't go home and wait for him there and just wait. I knew something was wrong and I needed to go to him. So when I showed up to the parking lot and there's a bunch of cop cars surrounding him, in the weirdest way, like I wasn't surprised. I was like, this motherfucker, what did he do? Like, but it didn't alarm me that there was so many, it just didn't like make sense. So I remember I get out. It's like, hi, can I ask, what's my husband's car doing over there? Immediately, how'd you know he's here? Like, I'm getting 100 questions. I was like, excuse me, what do you mean? You're waiting for a drone to see what? To see if he's safe, if he's going to harm you guys? What do you mean you need a drone? Why? Ma'am, I have reasons to believe your husband might have hurt himself. Excuse me? This is a random Thursday at 11:34 a.m. What do you mean? He's supposed to be at physical therapy right now. I immediately call up, not my mom, but my best friend's husband, Kyrie. And I just said to him, I said, I don't know what's going on, but I need you here. It felt like a year, but he was there in 10 minutes. They have me sitting on the curb. And they're waiting for the drone to arrive because they can't approach his vehicle yet. I'm trying to call his phone. It's off. Obviously, I turn it on airplane mode at that point. When they approached the car, they opened it. And I remember them swinging his legs around out. And I'm just seeing blood like splattered all over the car. His head turned. To this day, I'm still so sorry I called my best friend's husband at the time, because I don't wish anybody to see anybody in that state. And since then, there hasn't been a day I haven't seen that. I don't know how you can't unsee it. Kyrie asked the cops to move a cop car in front because I'm seeing everything at this point. And I'm just like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just like, nothing's processing at all. Meanwhile, I have a Zoom in 3 hours. I have client meetings. I'm supposed to be, all the things. I have a wedding in 2 weeks. But none of that, like, it made sense. Like, none of it just made sense. Why? Why now? Like, make this make sense to me. The cops come over and they say they have a pulse. It just made it so much worse because then there was hope. And then immediately, though, in my head, I'm like, wait, like, we just went through this whole process with my mom of her being on a ventilator, unresponsive. I and him had that talk of like, if we were ever in that state of mind, what would we want to do? And I'm like, I don't want to have to make the call to pull the plug on him. Like, but these are all the things so quickly that are running through my mind as my friend's husband's driving me to the fucking hospital behind this ambulance, praying to God that he doesn't die. When he would go on his drunk benders back in the day and I didn't hear from him, I would text his mom. I would say, have you heard from Michael? I wasn't speaking to his mom at the time, but I texted her on the way to the hospital and I said, have you heard from Michael today? And she said, no. And so that for me was really my answer as to he still didn't want you in his life. We got to the hospital and pretty immediately the doctors came over and told me that there was nothing they could do and that he was gone. Pretty sure I repeated back, but did you try? And then it just like fell. Because immediately in my head, I'm like, what do I tell our son? And meanwhile, I have 3 cops who are interrogating me and sitting me down. How did I know? What are the things? Was he drinking? Was it this? And I was like, no, like I was with him. How could he have? It was an hour. What, like anything. I remember turning to my best friend, Amanda, and telling her, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And she just told me, right now, you're going to get up for your kids. One day, and it may take a while, but we're going to make sure you get up for yourself. He asked if I wanted to say goodbye to him. Everyone thought I was crazy in the room because I did. But something about, I remember telling him, like, all right now I'm seeing is this man in his car. I need to feel him. So they bring me into a room. I couldn't even walk, so they like wheelchaired me. And they had him like encased in a big black bag. And I just remember like feeling his dense body and just being like, why? I didn't understand it. And the one thing I'm so beyond grateful for to my family, and I had 2 girlfriends fly out because we were supposed to be moving in 2 days. I never had to return back to our house. They packed the rest of it up for me. And for about the next 2 weeks, my kids and I stayed at my aunt's house. The rest of the day was hard. I said I wanted my niece. At that point, she knew something was wrong. She was actually home with him when he had left. So I'm calling her. Did Uncle Mikey say anything to you? Did you notice it? No. I'm checking our ring cameras. What did he do? What did he look like? What is he? Anything. Didn't even look back at the cameras. She said, I didn't even know he walked out the door. He was just here. So they bring her over to my aunt's house and I sit her down and I tell her what had happened. She's 15. She knows what death is. She can understand what the choice of suicide means. So I told her the truth. And at that point, I had said I really wasn't trying to fuck up your life more than it already was. And she had shared, because of me, her life had never been that good. So I told her, I don't know how the fuck I'm supposed to do this, but I will try my best to have you stay with us. Next came telling my son. Same best friends, Kyrie and Amanda went and picked him up. And on that drive, my then 3-year-old asked Kyrie, can you put on Bob Marley? Don't worry. Kyrie said he sobbed like a baby in the front seat, listening to this song because it was like, how did this kid know something so bad was coming that he needed to not worry, that everything's going to be all right? My son was already in therapy when my mom died. So I called up his therapist and I said, whoa, what the fuck do I say? And she said, you're just going to keep it very like matter of fact. Often kids of this age, like he might hear it, then he's going to want to go play. And like, this is going to be a never ending conversation. So he comes in and I just sit him down and she said, I have something really bad I need to tell you. Your dad died. Why? You know, honey, I don't really know the why right now, but I could tell you his heart stopped. And I could tell you your dad loved you so much. And he did. He probably like ran away after a minute and like started playing and then like all the things. I was like, that's it. Like, but I didn't want to talk about it more if he didn't want to talk about it more. I don't wish upon anybody having to tell their kid that their parent died. I don't wish upon any parent to have to do that and feel like they have to not give the full answer. If my kids were older, I would have told them. If they would have saw, they would have been told. But at that time, my daughter doesn't even know her colors. She hasn't even said, I love you, mommy. Like, she's 1, okay? My son's learning his ABCs. Like, how do you explain death? When all he's thinking, what do you mean? My dad just dropped me off. That night, I will never forget watching my son sit on the edge of the bed, like shaking, not knowing what to do with like himself. And it probably was like that for like a good 3 months. Every night, sit up and we talk, and I just like would sit with him on the edge of the bed. In the first coming months after, I was so scared of just like the judgment that came with suicide. Everybody assumes that you knew. No, I didn't know. Yes, was I vocal though of like, hey, I could see you're struggling, but I did not see it for what it was. He didn't want me to. And the choice of suicide is for those who choose to suffer alone. And so me and my kids, like I keep saying we're going to heal out loud because we're not going to make the same choice. We're not going to allow that. I don't want my kids to ever think that's a choice. Year 1, I didn't understand it. I just kept saying like, why now? Why not before? Why not before kids? Why make me go through everything that I stayed for if you were going to do this when I thought we were finally there? Advice to widows, in my notes on my phone, I started to like put my thoughts in my notes app. And eventually I started to put the date. The moment when it clicked for me of like, this was his sooner. I think he ultimately just knew he was never going to love himself. And if he only did the things just to me, I would have hated myself too. But it wasn't just me. It was so much bigger, and it was all of his own just like family trauma that he just thought he was never going to be good enough. And I used to tell him, like, I just hope our broken puzzle pieces eventually fit together. When it finally clicked for me that this was his sooner was he didn't want this when our kids were 15 and they lived a full life with him. And then he did what he did. And the only little bits I got on this very short little sticky note left for me was that the kids and I deserve better. Specifically, he said, you deserve better. Keep being who you are. So since then, I've been trying to figure out what's my better. Who am I aside from being a partner and a wife? And that really was like year 2 was like, okay, can I be happy? Like, okay, I can survive, but can I be happy? Not just like put on a smile, show up and function, but can I actually be happy for myself? So I did. I started to get so uncomfortable doing things that like you shouldn't be doing alone. I went to stadiums, I went to concerts, I went to games, I went to bars by myself, truly just to see like what makes me happy. I've learned music makes me happy. You also don't have to talk to people if you're like listening to music. But like I will take myself out to dinners and order exactly whatever the fuck I want because no one's going to tell me no anymore. And it seems so little, but like as little of a decision as like, do you want broccoli, which he would always order, and then I couldn't get asparagus. Now I order the asparagus just because it makes me happy to order it for myself. I don't apologize anymore for having boundaries for myself and for my kids, because especially in those first early months with them not knowing, I was so scared of them. My son's an old fucking soul. So like he listens. He's not the kid like with an iPad in the back, not paying attention. No, he is intently listening because he wants his own answers. So like nobody was allowed to intercept our bubble, like 10 people, that's it. And to this day, if there is anything I wish I did differently, which like I say I wish I did differently, but like let's be real, I'm a planner and I'm very independent, so I wasn't going to let anybody help me anyways, but like I wish I actually allowed people to help, because year 2 is so much harder than year 1. But I had already built up such a like strong facade that everyone just assumes I don't need help. So I don't get help unless I have hired help. If you are someone first with a partner who is struggling with their own addiction, please know it is not your responsibility to fix them, support them. That is a choice that they have to make on their own. Before my husband took his life, he was sober for nearly 2.5 years, and he did grow to become an incredible father, present father, active father. I still wouldn't say a great husband, but he wanted to try to be. That's why now the conversations with my kids, I refuse to let them only believe in the hero. Because then when eventually they do know, then I've lied to them this whole time. And I refuse. I don't lie to my kids. We say no secrets, only surprises. I need them to trust everything I've told them through all of this is the truth. So we started having conversations. What does it mean to be an alcoholic? What does it mean to struggle with your mental health? My son could tell you, what's therapy and why do we go? And that's a positive thing. If you are somebody struggling with your own mental health, please take my story and understand that your choice changes more lives than you could possibly imagine. And if I could wish for anything in this world, it's not that I wish that their dad was back here for me, because I'm not the same person. I wouldn't allow the same things. Again, I wish I loved myself the way I do now, then. But I wish he understood there was a version of our lives where he still could have been a dad to our kids. So please, if you are in that state of mind, ask for help. Reach out. Because I promise you our lives are not better because he's not here. They're different. We're different. I am not the same person. But I'm not looking for better. I'm just looking for us. I'm looking for who I was always supposed to be as a partner and a wife and as a mom. Now I don't get to show up as the mom I always dreamed I was going to be. I actually miss out on so much more because it's just me now. I have to work. I have to leave. And I get to. I don't ever want it to be so negative that I have my career. No, I'm so lucky that I have a career that I never gave up in the darkest times, because now I'm able to provide for my kids. I wish it was a lot easier sometimes. That's also why I named my company Andre McKenna and not Michaela Allen Events. They're my reason why. And yes, I did at first get up every day for them, but I can promise you now I get up every day for myself too. And that took a long time to get there. But it wasn't until I started sharing the truth that I could also heal myself too. So there's a little bit more to my own timeline and what I had to do when things didn't go according to plan. I like to think the biggest lesson I've learned in all of this is you can't control other people. You can only control yourself. Sometimes it's okay to rip up your fucking timeline and just be willing to see what's going to come next. So thank you for holding space for me and my story. I'll see you next time.